All right. So thank you very much. That was my message there. Also, greetings to Keba Nyancho and Powers, yourself, the Chamber platform. Thank you very much for creating this platform. I hope everybody walks away from this program today a better person, a better Gambian, more informed going forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lamin. Mr. Nyanko.
Yeah, thank you very much, Paos, for giving us this opportunity. And my brother, Mr. Tamba, thank you. And the listeners and those who listen to this program, greetings from the PPP. Keva Nango, the Director of Policy and Implementation for PPP. I'm very delighted to be part of this platform. For the longest time, the PPP has not been involved in engaging the young people wherever they are. A lot has been said about the PPP, but we have been absent in the discussions. And I think these are a very crucial moment for us to be part, so to participate and engaging the young people wherever they are, so that they can truly see our part of the story and what we have achieved so far for the Gambian people. And then I hope that all of us will learn a lot from this conversation between me and Lamil Tamba. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Before we go, can we all agree to our consensus that whatever we say in here, it is a true representation of our political party that we represent, or we are narrating at our own personal level?
Yes, everything I talk about on this program will not be personal opinion, because we're talking on a public platform. And I said before, a personal opinion isn't really one for public administration. And anything I talk about today is well documented by independent media who've got nothing to do with APRC, and they had nothing to do with the PPP, and the facts are there. So thank you very much.
Okay.
My debates have always been factual without an injection of sentiment or emotion, and I'll continue that tradition today. Thank you.
Okay, and how about Mr. Nyanko? We have the disclaimer.
Indeed. I am here basically to defend the record of the PPP, and I intend to making sure whatever I say is factual and it's not misleading. And where in this instance, wherever I make an opinion, in any instances, I will do my best to ensure viewers understand it's an opinion. When it comes to the party position, like any kind of policies that the current administration intend to do, and then if I said anything that is an official party position, I will do my best to also clarify it's an opinion, not the party position. Thank you.
Okay, that's fine. So for the purpose of the listeners and any media house that want to reference and quote this program, we have diverse opinionated people in here, and also they will come with the association to say that this is either a party position or their own opinion. Now, first into the program, we want to explore the issue of good governance, and I will start with PPP as a party. In terms of good governance, what has the PPP got to put on the table?
All right, thank you very much. As I said, I am here to defend the record of the PPP. The PPP is about 66 years old political party. First of all, for the listeners to understand, just a little background about how the PPP was established or came into existence. The PPP is not a party that just happened to be in power. It is a party that is an idea, and which was emanated due to what was happened under the administration of the British colony, whereby the people in the Protectorate were not allowed to participate in our electoral process. They were marginalized. All the issues that happened, all the decision making, as far as elections were concerned, happened in Banjul. The people in the Protectorate, they say once you leave Banjul, you are not considered a citizen because you don't have right to vote as a Gambian. So because of those issues, the people, most likely the young people who were from the provinces, now they call them the protectorate by the British, in Banjul, tried to create a society in order for them to be able to engage the British on basis of their social needs and development needs, which the British never in any way acknowledge or consider them. So these young people came together and established something called Protected People Society. This society was established in order to engage the people from protectorate within Banjul to come together so that they can have a unified force in order to convince or in order to compel the British to consider the protectorate, including voting rights. So in that instances, these meetings were happening. It was a society. Just to quickly go through, the young people came. They had meetings, and eventually one day, Sadala was invited in one of their meetings. Jawara told them, in order for us to be efficient in this thing, we have to change this to be a political party. That essentially, to fast track it, the PPS become Protectorate People's Party, which was launched and established in Basse in 1959, 14 February. And then when this party was actually formed, it was about protected people. Jawara then transformed it to make sure that in order for us to be seen as a party that we want to unite this country, we need to make it as people. We need to change the name to make it Progressive People Party, which actually will have the name that will represent the whole Gambians. When it comes to good governance, as I said, the reason why PP was established was to fight against marginalization, to make sure that every Gambian have right to participate in our election, and to make sure that Gambian people are united, and to make sure that our democratic rights are guaranteed. So that's the reason why it is in fact was formed. And good PP is one of the best government when it comes to human rights. And good governance cannot go without respect for human rights. And this is not only celebrated in the Gambia, but it also is known in the whole of Africa, in the whole of world, in the whole world as well. Number one, because of our good governance status. In Africa, we are the only country at the time that was going out and preaching respect for human rights and respect for democratic principles and credential in the whole of Africa. That was why when Africans leaders sit down and said, let us have a human rights office in Africa, despite the nature or the size of the Gambia or our economic situation, all the leaders in Africa said the only country that can host the Center for African Human Rights Commission should be in Gambia, because they are the only country that is promoting human rights issues. Notwithstanding, you cannot have good governance without multi-party democracy. Senegal and other countries in Africa, we are all promoting one party state. Under the PPP government, we said people should have the right to be able to exercise to be able to account their leadership by ensuring that we go to election every 5 years, and other people should be having the opportunity to establish their own political parties. That's why it is said the multi-party democracy was introduced. Senegal was too late to introduce multi-party democracy in most of African countries. So you see, and then the Gambia was also known champion human rights issues in Africa. That's why Sadat at one point was the one that was able to go and become the chairperson when the war between Iraq and Iran. Sadat was the one that led that effort to make sure there's a peace between Iraq and Iran. Despite the nature of our, despite how small we are, our economic situation, he championed that, and he was able to bring peace between Iran and Iraq war. And I can go on and go on. And during the time of Sir Dawda, our elders will tell you in the Gambia, if they will say in Mandinka, if you don't do anything in the Gambia, you live in Gambia in peace. You are not afraid about any consequences or any adversary efforts from the government in order to intimidate their fellow citizens as well. So I will definitely, and when you come to good governance, we have the best civil service in Africa. That was why big countries like Nigeria, South Africa, they come to Gambia to study how we administer our governance system. So therefore, I mean, these issues, we can expand them when you get into details on specific issues, so that I can allow Mr. Lamil Tamba to come in to lay out his own, his foundation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Keba. Thank you very much for your opening salvo.
Sorry. Yeah, Lamil Tamba, go on.
Yeah, thank you very much for your opening salvo. Although I have a lot of reservations, but we'll get to that at some point. I support the APRC party, and the APRC was founded on the 19th of July, 1996. In fact, 19th of July, 1996 is APRC Day, Alliance for Patriotic Reorientation and Construction. Although the leader of the preceding government, military government, was the same leader of APRC, legally they are two different entities. But I'll go back to 22nd of July 1994, when the PPP tenure was changed unconstitutionally by the Armed Forces Provisional Ruling Council. President Jammeh became the chairman of the Armed Forces Provisional Ruling Council and ruled as a military ruler for 2.5 years. On the 1st of January 1997, the Second Republic kicked in. The 1997 Constitution of the Gambia became effective. President Jammeh was duly sworn in soon after as the democratically elected President of the Republic of the Gambia. So what I'm saying is, the APRC party took over from the PPP. The two parties had completely different ideologies, completely different ways of administering governments, and everybody who's over 40 or over 45 in the Gambia today would have seen some period of the PPP and would have seen some period of the APRC government, and is seeing what the coalition government of Adama Barrow and subsequently the NPP government is delivering to the Gambia. So since the inception of APRC, Gambia started experiencing significant changes in terms of the physical face of the country, the socioeconomic status of the country, the connectivity of the country, the recognition of the country on the global stage, and everything that's magnificent about Gambia today has its roots firmly rooted in some of the programs of the APRC government in terms of getting Gambia noticed, Gambia planted everywhere, Gambia recognized in sports, socioeconomic activities, Pan-Africanism, you name it. All right, so I have my own reservations regarding PPP, but like I said, the conversation will develop to that. We can look at all sectors of the PPP and all sectors of the APRC government. So when people start talking about President Jammeh being a dictator, President Jammeh not being democratic, they don't look at the facts. They look at the sentimental value of the public space, which was dominated, thankfully, by President Jammeh's own success. In other ways, we can say that President Jammeh is a victim of his own success because he educated Gambians in masses, he provided connectivity, electrified the country nationally, provided for the first time a national radio station, a television station, a university, decentralization of government services, equality before every single person in the Gambia. If you're a government and you have a privileged few who are benefiting at the expense of the masses, you're not a government of the people, by the people, for the people. The ideology of the APRC was putting every single Gambian citizen on the platform, making sure every Gambian person has access to public facilities, education, health, agriculture, you name it. Before APRC came or AFPRC came, many opportunities in the country were reserved for people connected with the government. If you want a relative or close friend of a government official or a PPP executive member, your opportunities were few and far between. Sometimes even when you pass your common entrance with flying colors, you ended up going to lower basic school, which used to be called secondary school. if you were lucky. If you were not lucky, your educational career ended at primary 6 and you picked up some other trade to make ends meet. All that changed in 1994 when people who were born in huts in villages like myself with no educated parents, no connections with government, could suddenly have a fair shot at opportunities, what we call equity. APRC provided equity for all Gambian citizens, whether you're related with President Jammeh or you're not related with him. If you did well in school or vocational schools, academic or vocational, you had a crack at the whip, you had a fair share of opportunities in the nation. And that, for me, is what a government of the people, by the people, for the people was supposed to be. People put you there, you make sure those people, regardless of their background, benefit from public services when they became available. So that's the difference between the PPP regime. But when we talk about human rights record that Mr. Nyancho has spoken about regarding PPP, again, it's because during the PPP era, Gambians were not well informed. Connectivity wasn't available. Gambia was what I would call deprived of awareness of what's actually going on. So many things that were happening, people didn't know. But thankfully, there are lots of publications, including the British Parliament, of what happened in 1959 to start with the registration of voters in the colony and the protectorate, and the 1960 elections, and the tampering of the electoral register in 1961 of the colony and the protectorate, and the 1962 elections, which were annulled by a UK Court of Appeal. But then the minister that was there at the time, the undersecretary that was responsible for the Gambia, refused to implement the UK Appeals Court decision to annul the results of 1962 elections because of its irregularity. So basically, every single thing that we're talking about in terms of blaming President Jammeh for not being democratic, his record in the Gambia absolutely trumps that of the PPP and absolutely trumps that of the current administration. So when we come to specific topics, I will come with solid facts to substantiate my assumptions. Thank you. My position, sorry, not assumptions. Thank you.
Okay. Now, thank you very much. Lamin, I will kickstart with you. Still now on the issue of good governance.
Yeah.
Now, good governance sometimes is measured by how much of a government respects and upholds the rule of law.
Yes.
How much a government, how much its fiscal policies will address the domestic needs of the people. Yeah. These are one of the few things, not to mention all, that will guarantee a good governance, and how much they observe the democracy and its principles right now. Now, Yangis, you start by mentioning the APRC unconstitutionally removed a democratic elected government. How would you portray that government as a government with a good character of good governance when they admit, or when you mention the word unconstitutional?
So let's start with first, the AFPRC is not APRC. Legally, they're totally different. You couldn't vote for the AFPRC, but you can vote for the APRC. All right. The only common denominators in the APRC is the leader of the AFPRC and the leader of the APRC are the same. So yes, the AFPRC changed the government unconstitutionally. And in my strong view, given the ample publication of what happened in 1962, the AFPRC illegally removed an illegal government. All right. So in that case, it is a case of the blind leading the blind, or a case of somebody who robbed power from another government was robbed by another individual.
Okay.
So now, that's the most. So when we come to APRC itself, which I support, not the AFPRC. Okay. When we're talking about good governance of the APRC, so I don't want to talk too much about the AFPRC because I said categorically clear that no government should be changed unconstitutionally. So the AFPRC, in my view, seized power, something that they shouldn't have done. All right.
Okay.
But I support the APRC. So let's say when you're talking about good governance, you implementing the mandate of the people. All right. Now, the APRC for the first time was the government that instituted the Independent Electoral Commission. So the bad governance of the PPP, where the interior minister was counting the PPP votes, that bad governance was ended by the APRC government.
Yeah, but Lamin, if you are talking about, if you want to distinguish AFPRC and APRC, then we are talking about APRC correcting the wrongs and the mistake of the AFPRC.
Right, that's correct. So APRC corrected the wrongs of the AFPRC in that the APRC made it a legal mandate to be in power, given mandate by the people. All right. So in a way, if we're talking about Jawara and President Jammeh, what Jawara should have done is said in 1962 when the appeals court in the United Kingdom annulled the results that made him the chief minister, he should have said, no, the results are not good. Let's go and have a fresh election. Let's organize another election so that I can have a legal mandate to become the chief minister and then the prime minister and then the president. So when President Jammeh was ready, he corrected that unconstitutional change of power and made APRC a legal entity, something that PPP never did. All right. And this is publication. If you go to UK Parliament files, their archives, go to Hansard, who does a lot of publication of UK Parliament. They'll tell you the High Court of the Gambia upheld the election results, but the High Court later admitted that they missed out crucial evidence when they upheld the results. So the UK's appeal court annulled the results based on irregularities of the elections in 1962, because the 1959 electoral register was tampered with, and it wasn't supposed to be tampered with for 10 years in order to bring about the PPP. So the argument that the PPP, everybody voted is irrelevant. Once you've given somebody a legal mandate, you need to wait for their term to end and then correct stuff for the next election. You don't go and cut their term. But if you go to APRC, people voted for the APRC government via an independent electoral commission instituted by President Jammeh for the first time. President Jammeh didn't take his interior minister, didn't take his foreign minister, didn't take his inspector general of police to count the votes. This is an epitome of democracy that was brought to the Gambia by President Jammeh for the first time. Under PPP, it was the interior minister that was counting the votes. And we all know the vulnerabilities of people counting their own votes, the conflict of interest. All right?
Now, can I pause you there? Yeah. I want to bring in Nyanko to counter the so-called or the alleged claim of the 1962 coup d'etat, which you compared and justified that is Peter taken from Paul.
Yes.
Sort of, as in justifying the 1994 that is taken from Peter. Now, Mr. Keba, if you had Lamin when I challenged him on the good governance of the APRC and AFPRC. Now, I did challenge him. How would somebody reconcile with good governance in a government that unconstitutionally topple a new government? But we are bringing the issue of 1962. Now, are we talking about, was history repeated itself in 1994? And was that a justification for 1994 coup to take place? And then was PPP very democratic to accept the will of the people as far as good governance was concerned and the incident of 1962?
You're mute, Nyancho.
Okay, let me. Oh, sorry. Okay, yeah,
you guys can hear me now, right? Yeah,
yes.
Thank you very much, Fawos. I've been listening to Mr. Tamba, who's trying very hard to reconcile Jammeh's decision to overthrow a democratic government, which essentially created the APRC government in 1997. Coming down to the issue you're talking about 1962, by 1962, PPP was not in government. We are not in government. It was a British colony. It was a monarchical system. We participated in an election that was organized by the monarchy, the British colony. And the British, they have their way of litigation when you come to elections. And then that's a process that the PPP went through. And if anybody want to confirm that, you can watch MC Cham's recent interview. When he pointed out the same issue that he's pointing out right now, after the election was conducted, this is something that I hear from MC Cham Senior, who was a UP at the time, and they are the actual people who has contested the election results. And in his recent interview on the Independence Day, as I said, I don't have any kind of record that I can rely on when it comes to this particular issue.
I have a record. I can share it with you of UK Parliament, Parliament publications. I have a record.
Allow me to learn.
Thank you.
So what is more factual? Election has happened. The PPP was declared the winner. UP contested the results, and it went through process. The monarchy system, whatever they do, from one state to another state. And what is more interesting, the monarchy upheld the outcome of the results. As far as MC Cham, who was one of the participants in that petition, that the monarchy, the British, upheld the outcome of the election result, and that eventually makes her become the prime minister or the chief minister at the time. So that's factual. It doesn't mean that like APRC, they took a gun and then come and had basically took a gun and overthrow a government system that was established through democratic means. So you cannot compare the two. In any elections all over the world, people can petition, and if they petition, they can go to court. The court decide whether they upheld it or not, and if a lower court, annulled the result, they have an opportunity to go to higher court. Whatever the higher court said, that was stands. So this is what happened in the election in 1962. So therefore, Mr. Tamba need to make sure you qualify that. Yes, come on, yes.
The appeals court, which is higher than the high court, annulled the results in 1962.
Can I come here right now? Can we conclude by saying whatever happens to the issue of APRC and APRC is the same thing that we might say that happened during that 1962, because the first elections of the PPP was 24th of November 1965, a referendum, and the first election, the second election again was in 1966, where PPP won. So 1962, did we have PPP?
Yes, we had PPP that contested against UP. The two parties contested against each other in 1962. So what happened in 1962, they tampered with the electoral register and gave the win to PPP. But the most concerning thing is UP was given a mandate from 1960 to 1965. Why did they cut their term short? Because other people didn't vote. That was ridiculous. How didn't they know in 1959 when they did the electoral register that other people were not in the register and their man couldn't have voted? That's the problem. It's like cutting your term short.
Yeah, Mr. Tamba, if you listen to yourself, this is what I'm saying. When you are talking, just listen to yourself. When that election was being conducted, UP was the one that was in power.
Yes.
Not so. Are you guys listening?
Yeah.
They were the one who was in power. We came. UP was established far long before PP came in existence. They were the one that was in power. We contested against them in 1962. They were defeated. They appealed. They appealed. I mean, they went. They filed a case against the PPP that there are irregularities in the election. Some people were in the register. According to MC Cham, a lower court did. Declare the result in null and void. And then
it's not a lower court. High Court upheld the result of the election. And the appeals court in UK annulled the results. Appeals court is higher than the High Court. When they annulled it, the British Undersecretary refused to implement the order of the appeals court to have a threat to annul Jawara's victory.
So let's say whatever you said it is truth. Let's say the higher court or the Supreme Court said so.
Yeah.
The British Undersecretary was able to fail to implement the decision of the higher court or the highest court at the time.
Yeah.
That British Undersecretary must have a legal authority to do so. Otherwise, those decisions would have been implemented in the first place. We are dealing with law, right?
Yeah.
So let's make that accurate. That was not PPP, refusing to implement anything. That British Undersecretary must have the last say whether to implement that decision or not. Otherwise, the high court decision will have been implemented in the first place. So do not in any way mislead the people that the people that was in charge of the government system was UP. PP went and contested against them. UP went to High Court, as you said. The High Court nullified the result. The British Undersecretary, who is not PPP, have the last say whether to implement it or not. Refuse to implement the decision of the High Court. You cannot blame that on PPP. You cannot say that. No. Let's make it correct.
Why?
No.
Yeah, the chambers.
Let's put the facts here based on you.
Okay.
No,
in 1959.
No, can we come back to order here, please?
Yeah, allow me to land because
I'll let him continue. I'll let him continue. Yeah.
Based on what you said, the British Undersecretary,
based on the publication. Okay, I'm just giving you what the publication says.
Based on the publication that you have evidence of. I'm trying to use that publication so that people can understand.
Yeah.
Number one, let's put this in order. When the election was conducted, it was UP who was in power, not PPP.
Yes, that's correct.
Number one, PPP came as an opposition, contested against UP. They won, and the UP contested the result at the highest court, and the highest court nullified the result. Right, based on what you have with you there, the British Undersecretary who's supposed to implement that decision refused to implement the decision, and therefore the government of PPP was able to was installed moving forward. So therefore, the British Undersecretary, what that means, must have an authority to decide whether to implement that decision or not, despite the court ruling. That's what it means, right?
No, not really. They did that because they can do it in the Gambia.
Lamin, can I ask something? Can I get something here right now? If UP was in government, it is the burden of proof and for contest elections was onto them to retain their seat, not PPP. If PPP was declared winner by the local electoral commission at that time, now and then UP said no. It was not up to PPP to defend their win. It was up to UP as a government to do due diligence to retain their seat.
Yeah, but then
how can you blame PP for that? Because we don't oversee
let's go back a little bit.
Tamba, we don't oversee the election.
Can I come here, please? Can we establish the issue of the coup?
Yeah,
that's already said. Yes. Now that's the point here right now. Establishment of whether a coup took place and how, because we've already established that 1994 was unconstitutional. Don't endorse that.
Yeah.
Now let's establish the 1962 with the opponent fired upon. PPP. It will happen right now. That's what right now. Let's establish
that's what I'm coming to you now. 1959. Okay. He said PPP was formed on the 14th of is it February 1959?
Yes.
That was well before the electoral register was compiled for the 1960 election. And PPP was a witness to the compilation of the electoral register for the 1960 chief minister elections. Is that correct?
No, no, let me tell you. No.
PPP was formed before the electoral register was compiled for the 1960 election.
Listen, I want to stay on the facts. Then ask question. What I'm saying.
Yeah.
When those compilation of those electoral borders were done.
1959.
You said, and it is true, and that's fact. It was UP that was in government, was in power.
Yeah.
Not so?
I'm not.
No, no, no,
1959. I'm not sure who was in power in
of course,
1959.
UP was a major political party in the Gambia at the time. It was UP and Muslim Congress. UP was the one that has the highest authority in governance system as far as Gambia is concerned.
All right.
So when that electoral roll or roster you are talking about was being compiled, the government that was in charge of that roster locally was UP government.
Okay, in 1959, that's correct. But PPP was there.
No. Let's put it. That's correct. That's correct.
Lamin, can we allow him to land?
I agree with you. I agree with you that UP was in power.
Lamin, can we allow him to land so we know where he's driving at?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm Nyanko.
What I'm saying, because people are listening to you, Lamin.
Yeah.
Like for example, let's say there is right now we did a voter registration in the Gambia. Pesambaro was the one overseeing that voter registration.
Yeah.
Now we go to election in 2026. Pesambaro was defeated.
Yeah.
And now he want to blame me, who wasn't in governance at the time, that I tampered with the voter registration. Is that logical to you people who are listening?
If there is evidence, it doesn't matter if you're the incumbent or not.
No, what I'm saying.
But Lamin, how can we accuse that? How can we accuse
how can I be an opposition? I was able to tamper.
Now, give me a minute. Let me paint it for you now.
Go ahead.
Powers. When the electoral register was made in 1959, PPP saw it. Yeah?
Yes.
PPP agreed to it, and PPP went to the contest in 1960, and Perez Njai won. All right? So how come, after Perez Njai won in 1960 and was sworn in as the chief minister, PPP then turned around in 1961 and said the election is not fair because not everybody voted. But they saw the electoral register in 1959. How can PPP go back and say not everybody voted?
Now, Lamin, let's apply the same principle in 2016 when we had a decade of APRC rule and we have an electoral register right now.
Yeah.
Now, why would then Jammeh says no to results?
Okay, so let me give you a perfect example now. 2016 December, we go to the elections. Jammeh wins. UDP turns around and says, well, the voter register was tampered with in 2016. But they accepted the voter register and went to the election. Then when Jammeh won, they came back in 2017 and said, in fact, the voter register was not good. Not everybody in the Gambia voted. And then they cut Jammeh's term short. And we had another election.
But Lamin, I think
this is what I'm saying. So UDP came, but let's suppose Jammeh won the presidential election in December. We swore Jammeh in. 2017, 2018, UDP turned around and said, actually, the election in 2016 was not fair because not everybody voted. So therefore, let's cut Jammeh's term short. We tamper with the electoral register, and then the election happens, and then UDP wins. Do you think that's right, Paus?
Yeah, but Lamin, anybody can question.
Do you think that's right?
Let me clarify something here right now.
Yeah.
The register itself and the process of the election are different.
Yeah.
Now, compiling the voter register.
Yeah.
Nothing can come with it right now. That is done and dusted right now.
Thank you.
PPP exists when the voter register was done.
Yes,
right?
and they accepted it. And they accepted the voter register.
But the voter register was not whether they have to or they don't, because that was the government's responsibility to make sure that they registered people's voting. They will not do it in consultation with any opposition.
Yeah.
Right now. So now we're talking about here now the process in which the election was conducted. Was it free and fair?
The 1960 election.
How did 1962 election?
1962 election.
How did the coup happen? Yes.
Okay. 1960 election was not supposed to happen. That's where the palace coup started. It was not supposed to happen. Period.
Happens.
No. Pause.
The reason it happened is because the PPP went to whinge to say, oh, not everybody voted, so therefore we need to have another election.
And that claim was upheld by the
High Court. So now they went and changed the electoral register in the interim before the first elections of 1962 happened. So the High Court, the PS, Njai, and UP appealed and said, look, this election was happened. We didn't realize that they tampered with the electoral register, because if they went with the 1959 register, UP was confident that they were going to win again. But because they tampered with it in 1961 and created a new register without creating it the right way, UP lost. So UP appealed when they found out the register was tampered with. The High Court in the Gambia upheld the election result. They said the election results were good. UP appealed against that ruling. It went to UK's appeals court. The appeals court said the High Court in the Gambia missed crucial evidence. You understand? And for that reason, the election should be annulled completely, because you cannot allow an illegal government to take over. Even though Per Esnja was the one in power, PPP knew there was electoral register in 1959. Why didn't they say, oh, we need to get everybody to register to vote? They accepted it. They went to election 1960, they lost it. And then after the election, they made a complaint. Then they tampered with the register. Then they won the election in 1962 after tampering with the register. The High Court supported PPP's win. The appeals court above it said no. The High Court missed crucial evidence, and the High Court admitted that they didn't realize the election result, the voter registration was tampered with. So now, the British Undersecretary was supposed to implement the appeals court decision to annul the results and have the results. But what the Undersecretary said was, even if they annulled the result and had another vote, the overwhelming win of PPP on 1962 meant that PP was going to win again. But that's not how the law works. You cannot say something is wrong. But because you believe the winner is going to win again, you're not going to implement.
Now, Lamin, let's pause there and go to Teba. Now,
Can I counter here?
Yeah, can you counter? Yeah.
Lamin is not listening to himself, I believe, because Lamin, what I'm trying to establish here, that people who are listening, the voter registration that was held, PPP was established in 1959. Perinja was a major political party, major political, how do you call it, leading party.
I thought we crossed that already. Yes, that's correct. So now, PPP accepted that voter register.
We went into the, we went against him in an election, as we said, in 1960, and he said, PPP went and said, the election has to happen again, and whatever you're trying to claim here. But, PPP as an opposition will not be able to have the power to recall or to redo an election, whatever.
You know who was backing PPP? And the same first minister was the one that refused to implement the court's decision.
I'm coming. I'm just saying what I'm saying. Whatever PPP do was successful through what was lawfully available at the time. That's what they use. Whether you think the person is credible or not, that's an opinion you can put out there. All right. Okay. That's fine. So but
let's move.
Whatever they did to make sure there's a re-election, and as an opposition party, was successful. Number one. And then they went again as an opposition party, contest against the UP, who was in power at the time. They defeated the UP. You said they went to High Court. The High Court upheld the outcome of the result, and then UP went further to the appeal court. The appeal court nullified. It came back with undersecretary who's supposed to implement it, and the undersecretary, according to what you said he refused to implement it because basically he has the ultimate say that even whereas we went to the election, the outcome of the election will not be affected because he believed that PV has an overwhelming support within the system, and they're going to win. That's what you think.
But that's not how the law works. If the law means something, you need to implement what the law says.
Lamin, I'm talking about how the law should work.
The fact is, the law will not work. The law works because the undersecretary must have the legal authority to decide to implement or not to implement. And he did choose not to implement, and his action must be recognized as lawful, not based on what you think. He must have done it if he doesn't have the legal authority to do so. Laws are to be implemented. So the fact of the matter is, that's what happened. And based on what you narrate here, and I believe that the listeners can understand that what you said, for you to try to compare the 1994 and 1962 constitutional process, where people who have put in a government, few soldiers came and took a gun.
Yeah.
overthrow the government. These people went through a legal process, through a democratic process. Voting happens. They have exhausted every legal means, and then they form a government. You want to compare those two?
No, they didn't exhaust every legal means. This is what I'm telling you. The appeals court recommendation was not implemented because the executive dictatorship of the British government is to implement the court order.
Can we come to a conclusion here and agree that 1994 was unconstitutional? Due process wasn't followed right now. And the 1996 allegedly coup, or both of them, was I wasn't born at that time. What history have told us is at least a process was followed, but we question the people under those processes, whether they acted well or in accordance with the law or not. Is that the conclusion?
That's the unconstitutional change of power in 1962.
No. Powers,
because the court is the constitution, not the minister. The minister is executive power.
I agree with you.
Powers.
1994. 1994.
When we're talking about unconstitutional, we're talking about the law, not the executive power. The executive power is dictatorship. All right? So the British dictatorship installed Jawara. Yeah. The British courts didn't want him installed. So we continue from there.
No, what I'm saying. My understanding here is based on what how they call it. We all agree, and Lamil agree. What the Jammeh did was unconstitutional. Period. All right.
In 1994,
and PPP also, what they did also, was it constitutional or not constitutional?
It was unconstitutional. It's documented. It's written.
But basically, Lamin is telling us his narrative. What has happened?
No, it's Parliament. I'll send you the documentation. It's
what I'm saying. No, Lamin. What I'm saying, I even listen to. I listen to MC Cham talking about this issue.
MC Cham is not an independent person. I'm talking about an independent publication. MC Cham.
No, wait. MC Cham, there's no difference. MC Cham narrated the story exactly how he narrated.
MC Cham was a prosecutor, judge, and jury. He's not independent. He was
wait. That's why.
He was part of the PPP run by Bombay.
No. Wait. MC Cham narrated the story exactly how he narrated. I'm saying MC Cham. The way you talk about this story, he said the same way. He was a UP at the time.
Yeah. So why in the court?
In fact, he made a story. He said, the UP was very upset to an extent that they were trying to bring a vote, trying to put all those people in the boat, and basically take them to UK because they were very upset. He was saying the whole story. What I'm saying.
Okay.
I mean, you and MC Cham.
All right. So let's move to other aspects.
It's the same story. But
okay.
That's constitutional anyway. That's what I'm trying to put.
Okay. We leave it there.
Let's move on to something right now.
Powers. This is the difference between Gambian people and me. When I know something is wrong, I admit it's wrong, but they never admit it.
Hopefully by the end of the day, we will come to a conclusion right now. I want us part of good governance, I want us to explore 3 sections within good governance, and then we move on to something different. That's the human rights and the rule of law. Also, let me see the next one, public trust. Now, these are the 3 key areas I want us to explore in every government. Now, I'm going to start with Lamin and then Yafine Kagum. On the human rights, we want to see how much does the APRC deliver? And where did the government deliver on civil, cultural, and economic, political, and social rights of the Gambian? What was human rights like in the Gambia in terms of social, in terms of the economical, culture, and then social rights? How much did the APRC government perform in this area versus or compared to what will we going to hear from PPP?
Thank you very much. So when you start talking about a government, you have to look at its performance compared to similar governments, all right? So when we're talking about government, for instance, when you're running key performance indicators, you need to bring in comparison of what it was in 2024, what it was in 2025, and what it will be in 2026. So when you're talking about governments as well, you have to bring in British rule of 400 years or 430 years, whatever it was. You have to bring in 32 years of PPP, 22 years of President Jammeh, and 8 years of Adam Barrow. Then it'll give you an example of who excelled out of all these four governments. All right. So now, when we're talking about the human rights record of the APRC, first and foremost, you need to have a clear mandate from the people that they want you to rule. Something that APRC is number one, because APRC is the first one to create an independent body to regulate elections, to conduct elections, to count the votes independently and give the president a mandate. So therefore, when you're talking about human rights, you're talking about people picking the person they want them to represent. All right? The person they want to represent them is the person they pick. So first and foremost, democratically, establishing the Independent Electoral Commission is a massive boost for the Gambia. President Jammeh started that. Secondly, when we're talking about human rights, there are about 12 or 13 fundamental human rights in the 1997 Constitution of the Gambia that the government needed to uphold. One of them is right to education. The other one is right to medical services. The other one is right to protect lives and livelihoods of Gambian citizens. The other one is the right to safe and reliable drinking water, and so on and so on. When we look at those sectors, first and foremost, what did President Jammeh do when he came to the Gambia? He made sure that Gambian people had equal access to education by building schools. The first time since the British left in the Gambia for a government to take its cents, its butoots and dallases, to construct its own schools was done by the APRC government. All right? It never happened before. All the schools that were there before 1994, about over 200 of them were Christian missionary, or they're left behind by the British, or some other philanthropists. Even Doi built their own nursery school and or primary school called Nyakoi. PPP didn't do that. So therefore, when you're talking about human rights, it's not so much about, okay, I picked up a gun and killed somebody, or I didn't provide basic medication and somebody died from it. They're both human rights violations, okay? So access to education was ensured by the APRC government like no other government before it. Access to medical services, the PPP government didn't build one government hospital throughout its 32 years in power. The hospitals that were there were built before it, all right, or built by Christian missionaries. The clinics that were built by the Anglican Mission and others, or Action Aid and other agencies, NGOs, that built medical facilities. The APRC came and started building major hospitals in different areas to make access to healthcare available to every single Gambian, regardless of your background. All right? The government of APRC continued to provide scholarship, make education free, make it accessible, make it compulsory for Gambian women. All right? That is a basic right. In the 1970 Constitution, PAUS, if you had a child with a non-Gambian citizen, your child will be Gambian automatically by descent. But if your wife, or if your sister rather, a Gambian, had a child with a non-Gambian, her children will not be Gambians by descent. Inequality between sexes. So when you're talking about human rights, it's about making people equal. It's about making the basic services of a nation available to every single person. That's what PPP didn't do. That's what the British didn't do. Under the British, you have to be in their circles, like PRS and others, to get highly educated, to get scholarships, to get professional jobs. The PPP came and continued the same. They had a slight ideological difference with UP, but not very much, because the PPP was also an installation of the British system. So before the PPP left, education was not accessible to many people.
Can we elaborate also on the political and social rights of the ordinary Gambians within the APRC right now?
So the political aspects, when we're talking about multi-party democracy, we had probably more parties contest in the 1996 election. Probably, I'm not sure how many parties were registered in 1992 when the election was held. All right. But I know for a fact that we had a multi-party democracy in 1996 when the election was held. Politically, throughout President Jammeh's 22 years, no false charges were laid on a political party leader and arrested and charged them for it. The only political party leader, major political party leader who was picked up, charged, prosecuted, and convicted was Hussein Dabo. But even he admitted he went to protest without a permit. And protests, when you do them in public without a permit, you disrupt public services. That's what the public order said. I have my own feelings regarding Public Order Act, but Hussein Dabo admitted it. He was given the chance to defend himself. He was given the opportunity to go all the way to ECOWAS, and ECOWAS said, no, you broke Gambian law by protesting without a permit. Throughout President Jammeh's time, no political party leader had false charges on him, and they locked him up. Something that the PPP didn't do, because Sheriff Diba was locked up for nearly a year on false charges of being part of the coupists. All right? Something that never happened under President Jammeh. Sheriff Diba was not part of Kukoya and his rebels. But the PPP saw it as an opportunity to restrict his freedom, to detain him, to put him under difficult conditions at Mile 2 until few weeks before the 1982 elections, and then they freed him when he couldn't do anything to challenge the PPP. The PPP didn't provide an independent institution to count their votes. So therefore, to win against the PPP was close to impossible. Number two, PPP banned Moja and they banned Pingon George's party. What is it called again? SRLP, something like that. PPP banned two political parties in the Gambia from existing in a democratic format. It's not like the APRC. This was a democratic, supposed to be a democratic environment. The PPP banned the two political parties. They made life difficult for Sheriff Diba. They made life difficult for Doi. In fact, they jailed Doi's top executive based on false charges, Sam Sarr and his wife. If we go back again, we're talking about political rights, all right? You got a coup that happened in 1981. Yes, it was ugly. Many publications put death rates at 1,000 or more, and this includes Arkansas publication, Christian Science Monitor, the original Standard newspaper article, which Standard newspaper went and edited in 2019. They put the deaths from that coup in 1981 at over 1,000 people were killed. And I'm 100% sure most of them died because the PPP and their forces they brought to the Gambia, the Senegalese army, were randomly bombarding people and killing people. All right? But that coup happened. PPP returned to power 8 days after the coup. Jawara was reinstated. But the PPP kept the state of emergency from 1981 and only ended the state of emergency in 1985. No government post-independence had a state of emergency that long. The next state of emergency we had was during the impasse 2016 because ECOWAS threatened to attack Gambia. So that state of emergency was legitimate because if you threaten war on a state, the state needs to declare a state of emergency. The next state of emergency we had was declared by Adama Barrow for nearly 6 months because of coronavirus. All right? So therefore, when we're talking about the human and political rights, you cannot compare the government of APRC and the government of PPP. PPP's got so many bad records, and we'll talk about this in the long run, including their failures economically. I heard them saying the other day, oh, during PPP there was economic struggles in the 70s and 80s. I agree with that. But come and tell me if President Jammeh didn't face the worst financial crisis in modern history from 2008 to 2012. Come and tell me that President Jammeh didn't suffer 2 crop failures and Ebola virus. Yeah? And if there were no wars during President Jammeh's time that would have affected the Gambia. Did we dip into recession under President Jammeh? No. Did we dip into depression under President Jammeh like it happened under PPP between 1987 and 1993? No. Even Adama Barrow, who's blaming the war in Ukraine and coronavirus, President Jammeh had worse. He had worse than that. And we still stayed afloat. We never dipped into recession, let alone a depression. There was no inflation under President Jammeh, and there's no stagflation under President Jammeh. But we'll come to that topic.
Can we summarize here? Now, Nyanko, I'm going to ask the same question right now. On a good governance, I'm going to explore 3 things. I'm sure you heard what I was saying. The human right, rule of law, and public trust under every government to determine the percentage of the rule of law. Sorry, good governance. Now, how can you tell us about, in terms of human rights during the PPP regime, how much did they observe, or how much did they deliver on the civil, cultural, and economic and social rights of the ordinary Gambians in the country?
Yeah, Mr. Tamba. Yeah, Jammeh killed over 200 Gambians within the span of 22 years of his rule.
Do you want to dwell on the party itself and come
No,
to?
I'm coming. No, I'm coming.
Against.
I know. I want to make sure that when we are addressing these issues, we also understand these issues are very, very important issues we are dealing with. It's not only about political statements. The lives are lost under Yahya Jammeh 22 years. So we cannot have Mr. Tamba to basically tell Gambians those things never existed, or basically not to even talk about them, trying to paint Yahya Jammeh and his government as a government that can even talk about good governance. It is something that we all have watched in the TRRC, carried by how they call it, SFL, with one of the most human rights record that SFL declined. SFL have already made that thing that what has happened in under Yahya Jammeh, is how they call it. How do you even describe it? I forgot the word he used. So now that we are trying to talk about good governance, that alone has disqualified APRC when it comes to good governance, based on what we have seen publicly. I mean, I want people to understand that one of the reasons why PP was established, it was actually to fight against the system that was there at the time. Basically, to introduce what is called democratic principles and values of, making sure that every Gambian have access to vote and every Gambian also was able to participate through a political party of their choice. Mr. Tamba was talking about schools, what the Adam has found and what the Adam has did, and I will give you a record. When PP, before PP comes to the government, we have 11,500 students that were enrolled in primary school in 1964, right? And then we only have 4 small secondary schools. All these 11,500 students will have to go to these 4 small secondary schools in order to have access to education. At the time of independence, we have one doctor for 18,700 persons. One doctor will have to see 18,700 individuals at the time of independence. At the time of independence, we have one hospital bed for 690 persons. At the time of independence, we have the only construction road we have in the Gambia at the time. It was a 22-mile paved way from Batos to Brikama. 22 miles. The British only did 22 miles. It's a paved way from Batos to Brikama. That was the only construction that one can find in the Gambia at the time of independence. By the time the PPP was advocating for us to have our independence in the Gambia, the status quo was, as I said this yesterday, only 10 Gambians has attended university. The whole of Gambia, only 10 people went to university and graduated, including Sadawara, Dr. Sisi. Most of all those people did not even study public administration. What they studied was, Dr. Sisi was a doctor. Jawara himself was a surgeon. So they don't even have this kind of a political interest at the time. So the PPP took over Gambia with 5.3 million pounds deficit. That's why when the PPP government when Jawara was advocating for independence, the political players, people like Perry Njai and other people, what they suggested was, and international by the British themselves, and London Times, New York Times said, Jawara was too ambitious. There is nothing that is viable at the time that this Gambia would be able to sustain itself and become an independent state. So therefore, even a famous book was written, or unfamous, as far as the PP is concerned, a book written by Bakar Rice called The Birth of an Improbable Nation. That once we take up the country, the Gambia will collapse. The Gambia will not stand as a state because there is no sign of resources, and the resources that any country can rely on, human resources, wasn't available at the time to run the Gambia. That was the status quo when PP took over the country from the British, in 1965, or let's say in 1970, where we are able to utilize the resources of our own. What did PP actually did in order to make sure that we, the Gambian people, becomes our sovereignty is respected and maintained? Number one, we did not have any government infrastructure in the place. There's no like governments, there's no like ministries or all those things. They need to build the foundation for us to be able to govern ourselves. They created several ministries, and then they will have to come with a national development plan to make sure that they start building the Gambia, and they also start building the foundation and the needs of the Gambian people to make sure when you come to healthcare, when you come to agriculture, and when you come to all social issues. One thing Sarah actually mentioned when he comes, his objective was to make sure the issue of Batos, people in Banjul, have access to voting, and the people from the population will not be able to vote when the politicians at the time or the parties at the time propose an electoral system whereby, let's say, for example, we have chiefs. Let's say in KMC they have a chief, or let's say KMC, Talbe is the mayor. When Talbe votes, he voted for the entire KMC, represent the entire KMC. People were not having access to vote based on what they wanted. When PP came, that's the number one thing they thought, no, a universal adult suffrage. Every Gambian must be able to participate and vote. I mean, whatever leader they want. We expanded that when we came in power. That's what we did in the first place, to make sure that that's what we call good governance. Expand the voting population, and everybody can participate in the election and vote. When PP came and said, we believe in multi-party democracy, we are going to make sure that the multi-party democracy does exist within the country, and they will make sure that everybody was able to, if you wish to form a political party, and then people decide who to vote for based on their choices, then people can establish government. And what did they say again? They said, respect to human rights. And in the entire regime of PPP government, only one person was sentenced dead, and Jaro of Halit was called Danso. The Danso went after, killed openly this kid, the Philly Force, that time, something Mahoney, killed him openly, fired him and killed him. They went up for the High Court appeal, and then when it was sentenced to death, Sir Dauda is the only at point in time where he ascended to say, this man deserves to be sentenced to death, and then he accepts the ruling of the court to implement the death sentence. Is the only person in his entire governance system that you can say has lost his life under his administration. When you come to schools, that Mr. Tamba.
Mr. Lamin, sorry, can we confirm here?
Yes.
Can we accept defeat or win or a tie on the issue of conducting elections? Because in the Jammeh regime, we have the IEC. In the Jawa regime, what did we have?
Now, okay, no, let me just land down. Let me just finish this. I want to make sure that people understand the status quo of the Gambia. When people come in power, let's say the first development agenda of PV from 1970. Let's say to 1980. That's the 5-year development plan of the Gambia under PP government from 1970 to 1980. The population at the time was 635,000 Gambians. 635. That's the population. That may include foreigners as well. We have in the schools that we enroll since we took over. We enroll like we have 22,600 people that we were able to enroll in school by 1974, and that was increased of 43,433. Let me just come down here. At the time of independence, Gambia did not have any physicians. Gambian physicians, we don't have it. By 1980, Gambia was able to produce 36 physicians of their own. As I said, only one doctor was able to see 11,800 people on the British colony. All right. If you come to medical personnels, we don't have it. It's non-available. PEP government was able to create 385 medical personnels in our first 5 years Because remember, and then when you comes to hospital beds, we don't have it. Because, as I said, how many beds we have? I mean, I just tell you, give you statistics. We are able to increase the number of beds to 460 in our hospitals that was established by the British colony. So this man was talking about, when you come to the, this just to summarize it, and I will be able to go in detail most of these issues one by one to tell you the status quo of the Gambia, a country that could not even produce a physician, a country that we are hospital beds. We have hospital beds was to about one person is also 680 hospital beds. So I will come to I will kind of clarify that. So when you come to the Independent Electoral Commission, what Lamin is saying, the Minister of Interior was the one counting the vote is completely false. This is a situation. We don't have anything called Independent Electoral Commission. What we have, what we have is the appointment of an electoral inspector, a general, will be appointed to oversee the electoral process of the Gambia. This electoral inspector, will then, these are just factual basis. The law. These are
electoral inspector under who? Under which ministry?
Of course, this is under Minister of Local Government, Minister of Local Government and Lands.
Okay.
Right, not even Minister of Interior. That's misleading.
Okay, so maybe I got the ministry wrong, but
No.
local government and lands was counted.
I'm just